Well, the good die young, and Cuban dictator Fidel Castro has passed away at 90. All across Cuba, people prepared for a 7-day period of pretending to mourn while sniggering quietly and hoping no one killed them for it. While the thousands of people who risked their lives to escape Cuba celebrated Castro's death, all the people who risked their lives to go live in Cuba were sorry to see him go. Across the U.S., journalists and other Democrats honored Castro in grief-stricken statements intended to comfort the nation with the comic relief of their moral stupidity. As one sobbing American college student put it, quote, "I was so upset by the election of Donald Trump, but now I see that the people condemning Trump are also praising Castro, so maybe they're just knuckleheads and Trump is actually okay," unquote. NBC's Andrea Mitchell marked Castro's passing by saying, quote, "Even though he murdered thousands and enslaved an entire nation, he gave Cuba universal health care so that even those who opposed him could walk right into a hospital and have the bullets removed from their brains." Brian Williams, who has a job at MSNBC for some reason, said, quote, "I remember when Fidel and I were fighting in the Cuban jungle together and we ran into a patrol of Batista's orcs who were trying to conquer Narnia and join forces with Voldemort. That was the moment when I saw Castro was truly a great man," unquote. The New York Times, a former newspaper, published an obituary saying, quote, "Some people saw Fidel as a murderous dictator, but some saw him as a fiery, romantic revolutionary with enormous sex appeal, who sometimes they would fantasize about having sex with in a thrillingly submissive way before dreaming they could hand the entire American government into his excitingly masculine and powerful hands so they could be submissive to him all the time. But that's just some people," unquote. Among world leaders, soon-to-be former failed President Barack Obama issued a statement saying, "Many in Cuba today are receiving the hearts and minds of those across America who, whether they are rich or poor, are looking to the hopes and dreams of an entire nation in the sunrise of its most opulent crescendos." When told his statement didn't make any sense, Obama poured himself another whiskey and muttered, "What difference does it make? I've accomplished nothing, and my life is a meaningless joke. Leave me the hell alone." Canada's Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, came under heavy criticism for issuing a statement praising Castro. Trudeau struck back at his critics saying, quote, "Hey, maybe if you like the way you look so much, oh baby, you should go and love yourself," unquote. Possibly that was Justin Bieber, but who can say? Donald Trump and Nancy Pelosi made the wisest and most intelligent statements about Castro's death, and in other news, a cow gave birth to a two-headed human child. Castro's ashes will be buried beside those of other famous Cubans. He will then proceed to the throne of God, where in recognition of a lifetime of almost unimaginable brutality and evil, he will be condemned to spend eternity in Castro's Cuba. Trigger warning, I'm Andrew Klavan, and this is The Andrew Klavan Show.
I feel hunky-dunky, life is tickety-boo. Birds are winging, also singing hunky-dunky-doo. Ship-shaped ipsy-topsy, the world is zippity-zing. It's a wonderful day, hurrah, hooray! It makes me want to sing. Oh, hurrah, hooray! Oh, hooray, hurrah! I feel
I'm singing
hunky-dunky.
it. We liked it so much we're doing it twice. All right. Are we on finally? Yes. All right. Today we're asking the philosophical question, if Fidel Castro has a Klavanless weekend, is it a Klavanless weekend? I mean, that is the question, because it certainly was for Fidel. Welcome back. I hope you all had a nice Thanksgiving. I returned to you a wiser but fatter man. I think I did nothing for 4 days but eat and drink. That's all I did and argue with liberals and make myself feel bad about the fact that I have no patience for liberals anymore. Now I have to, walk around going, oh, I wish I were nicer to the liberals, but I'm not, so it doesn't matter. All right, we're going to be talking more about Fidel Castro with our Nobel Prize winning cultural correspondent, Michael Knowles. I gave him the Nobel Prize because I figure if they're giving it to Bob Dylan and Barack Obama, it no longer means anything, so why can't I just give them to him? Knowles has one. We're going to pipe him in here by our miraculous technology. Before that, let me just remind you that my memoir, The Great Good Thing, A Secular Jew Comes to Faith in Christ, is on sale as an ebook for 3 more days till the end of the month. You can get it for $2.99, but really what you should do is get the hardcover and give it to your friends for Christmas because it makes an excellent Christmas present. All right, Knowles, can we bring in Knowles? Can we chopper him in here and coming? There he is, coming directly from the jungles of Cuba, or possibly the desk next to mine. I'm not sure. So I wanted to bring you on right away because I wanted to talk about, first of all, the reaction to Castro's death. I mean, this is a guy, almost 60 years, enslaved this island. He murdered, they have this thing called the Cuban Archive, where they're trying to name all the people that he assassinated. I mean, by firing squad and tortured and all this stuff. They're up to over 9,000 now, just naming them, and the work is going to be going on. So this is here is Obama's, I was making fun of this, but here is a selection of Obama's statement about the death of Fidel Castro. At this time of Fidel Castro's passing, we extend a hand of friendship to the Cuban people. We know that this moment fills Cubans in Cuba and in the United States with powerful emotions, recalling the countless ways in which Fidel Castro altered the course of individual lives, families, and of the Cuban nation. A bullet to the head will alter your life, no question. History will record and judge the enormous impact of this singular figure on the people and world around him. Today we offer condolences to Fidel Castro's family, and our thoughts and prayers are with the Cuban people. In the days ahead, they will recall the past and also look to the future. As one does. As they do, the Cuban people must know that they have a friend and partner in the United States of America. It's amazing stuff.
Can I just leave after that? I don't want to go on.
That says it all, doesn't it? And Trump, to Trump's credit, he's just said this was an evil dictator, and good riddance.
Just think of that statement. Donald Trump has more moral clarity than any world leader on this issue.
And Nancy Pelosi was the same. But
That's right.
But how hard was it? I mean, the stuff that the press was saying was unbelievable. I mean, did you hear their reactions?
I don't want to bring us back to the last segment that we did on Wednesday, but there was a lot of fake news going around over the past couple days.
Yeah.
Actually, before we get to, I do think we shouldn't skip over Justin Trudeau's statement.
Oh, yeah.
I know you mentioned it in the monologue. Just listen to this.
Let's hear the real one.
It is with deep sorrow that I learned today of the death of Cuba's longest-serving president. Fidel Castro was a larger-than-life leader who served his people for almost half a century. A legendary revolutionary and orator, Mr. Castro made significant improvement to education. No, he didn't. And healthcare, no, he didn't, of his island nation. While a controversial figure, both Mr. Castro's supporters and detractors recognized his tremendous dedication and love for the Cuban people, no, we don't, who had a deep and lasting affection for El Comandante. I can't go on. It gets worse. I just can't keep reading it.
This is amazing. Let's go back. Let us talk a little bit about who this guy was and the history of this guy. In all fairness, before Castro, Cuba was under the heels of a dictator, Batista, right? So that's where we start.
Yeah, that's right. Cuba was under the heels of this obvious tyrant, Fulgencio Batista. A lot of people in their reactions are saying that we can't criticize Castro because the United States had a relationship with Batista, which doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
But also there is a moral distinction here between a murderous tyrant who's an ally of the United States and a murderous tyrant who brings Soviet missiles into the Western Hemisphere.
Who brought us close to nuclear war.
That's right.
So Castro comes to power.
Castro comes to power. What's interesting is Castro actually tried to come to power about 6 years earlier than he did. In 1953, he staged what he was hoping to be a revolution and was arrested by Batista, thrown in jail for a few years, and then eventually exiled. He was allowed to go away to Mexico and start planning another revolution with his brother Raul and with Che Guevara of T-shirt fame.
Of T-shirt fame.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then he came back to Cuba and overthrew the government. So you would think, I don't know, this seems to happen a lot in dictatorships when these commies come to power.
Yeah, like the Hitler with the push, and they put them away, and they kind of seasons them in prison, and they come back all the stronger. Yeah.
That's right, yeah. So, you think they would learn their lesson, but Fidel comes to power in 1959. He is 12 weeks later takes a trip to the United States, says he has no interest in communism, goes around to Georgetown University, I think, a few places, makes nice with Americans, and then within 2 years has ballistic missiles from the Soviet Union in Cuba, almost launching the entire world into a full-scale nuclear war.
That is one of my earliest memories. I can remember my father sitting watching TV saying, like, this is the end of the world. We're all going to die. Basically. My father was a very calm guy.
That's right. But by all reports, Fidel Castro was pleading with the Soviet Union to fire the missiles.
Oh, God.
This was not...
And the tragic thing was, we tried to get him out of there at the Bay of Pigs. Eisenhower basically had set up this invasion where they were going to send over the CIA-backed rebels, basically, were going to go over. And then Kennedy really got cold feet because they thought like Dick Cheney, the Cubans were going to rise up and throw off their chains, and that didn't happen. And Kennedy just thought, like, I want this to be a secret, so I don't want to give them the air support they need.
That's right.
The whole thing was a fiasco.
That didn't stop us, though, from an estimated 9 to 16 CIA attempts to assassinate Castro, and a possible 600 attempts over the course of his life, including certain ideas. There were a couple really...
The exploding cigar.
Yeah, the exploding cigar. There was going to be one where submarines fired lights over Cuba to make the Cubans believe that it was the second coming of Christ and revolt against the communists.
That always works. That always works. That one has worked a million times.
That's right.
And the thing that gets me about this, a lot of these statements, like the one you read from Trudeau, celebrated how long he was in power. And they would say, like, he stymied, 6 or 7 American presidents. That's not a good thing to have a guy in power that long. That's a bad thing. Right?
It actually was 10 presidencies that he was officially in power, and then obviously, he stepped down in 2008 officially. Something tells me he still wielded a bit of influence. With the current president, Raul Castro.
But why is that like a good thing that a guy's in power for 60 years? That's what we call a dictatorship, right?
That's right, but it's so efficient. The left really loves that.
Let's get to this thing about this is what everybody's saying. Oh, the health care and the universal health care and education. He raised literacy.
That's right.
Is this true?
I'll just read you a couple lines from the fake news over the weekend.
Okay, yeah.
Andrea Mitchell said that he gave his people better health care and education and will be revered for the education and social services and Medicare for all of his people.
That woman, like you could shout in her ear and it would echo. I mean, that is like, she is the stupidest. All right, go ahead. Yeah.
Jim Avila at CNN said that even Castro's critics praised his advances in healthcare and education. I don't know which critics he took. I didn't get a call, And Castro was considered, even to this day, the George Washington of his country among those who remain in Cuba. Now, again, I don't know how many of those who remain in Cuba Jim was able to talk to, but every single person who left Cuba, including Castro's daughter, seems to disagree with the statement.
First of all, that was 20% of the country left. 20% of the country tried to escape. And of course, they were dying and they were being eaten by sharks. Castro was ramming their boats, these poor rafts that they were trying to escape. He was having his Coast Guard ram their boats. So there was nobody, as Bill Whittle is fond of, our pal Bill Whittle is fond of pointing out, nobody was rowing their inner tube in the other direction.
From Miami, yeah. I mean, Chris Matthews really summed up the left's feeling on Castro in this way. He says, Fidel Castro was a romantic figure when he came into power. Yeah. We rooted like mad for the guy, and he was almost like a folk hero to most of us.
That's amazing.
And,
amazing.
I will give Chris Matthews credit for being honest.
Yes.
Because I think a lot of left-wingers will tell you that privately, and, they're the buttheads. Castro was a terrible guy, but... Yeah. As for healthcare and education, it is true. Cuba has one of the best healthcare systems in the world. But it isn't for Cubans. Cubans can't use it. There are about 3 healthcare systems in Cuba. There is medical tourism, which is very popular. These are usually cosmetic surgeries, Botox, that sort of thing.
So people from here can go over there, you mean?
That's right. Okay. Anyone who have hard currency to pay the Castros.
They have no money.
To keep priming their economy.
Right.
So that exists. There's another healthcare system for party members and VIPs. That is also ranked pretty well. There are a lot of doctors that Cuba exports to kind of make a show of things. Then there's the third healthcare system, which is for Cubans. The situation is so deplorable, to borrow a word from the former Secretary of State. It is so deplorable that people have to bring their own bed sheets, towels, toilet paper, and pillows when they go to these hospitals.
This is drives me crazy. And this is Michael Moore made a film about how wonderful it all is. Right. Because this is what communism and socialism always do. It creates two tiers. It always creates it makes everybody equal except for the people in power. I mean, Castro was worth like $1 billion. I mean, he was a filthy rich guy and he was living this life of women and mansions and all this stuff. Of course, while people starved. When he took Batista was a dictator. When he took over Cuba, Cuba was one of the best economies in the Latin world. And now, if you look at Havana, it looks like a bombed-out city.
Well, what I don't understand, the one myth everyone keeps talking about is the great educational system.
Yeah, the literacy,
in Cuba, and literacy and everything. The University of Havana, which is the university in Cuba, is not even ranked in the top 1,000 colleges and universities in the world. It's ranked number 1,700 or something like that, below tiny universities in Africa and some of the poorer parts of the world. It's not even in the top 20 universities in the Caribbean. I mean, this thing is ranked below Mexico, Puerto Rico.
Oh, man.
So I really don't know where. I mean, and this is a pretty recent study from Spain's Superior Council of Scientific Research. I don't really know where they get any of these numbers from other than Chris Matthew fever dreams.
And they come from Castro. I mean, that's one of the big things is all these numbers about their healthcare. All right, well, thank you very much, our Nobel Prize-winning cultural correspondent, Michael Knowles.
Thank you for my prize, by the way. Thank you.
Yeah, it's in the mail. Your prize is in the mail with the check. We got to say goodbye to our friends on Facebook and YouTube, and come on over to the Daily Wire, and you can listen and you could watch if you would just subscribe for a lousy $8 a month.